You know, we always hear about the college dropout who builds a billion-dollar company. It's a great story. But what if the real unfair advantage isn't youth, but experience? Today, we're tearing down the strategy of one of India's most powerful brands, one built by a seasoned pro who saw what everyone else was missing. This is the founder's edge.
So, let's start with the big question. How in the world do you build a unicorn from nothing when you're 50 years old? I mean, this isn't just about starting a business. It's about a massive, high-stakes career change, jumping into the deep end of e-commerce to go up against, well, everyone. The answer, it turns out, is in the story of Falguni Nayar and her beauty empire, Nykaa.
Now just look at this timeline for a second. For over 2 decades, Falguni Nayar was an absolute titan in investment banking. Then, at an age when most people are thinking about slowing down, she did something pretty crazy. She quit. She walked away from it all to start an e-commerce company in an industry she barely knew. And get this, less than a decade later, she took that company public. It's an incredible story, and we're going to unpack exactly how she did it.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll get to know Nykaa, the company that proves this model works. Then we'll dissect the 5 key moves that built their empire. We'll connect those moves back to Falguni Nayar's unique experience. That's the secret sauce. And finally, we'll cover the big takeaways and the competitive storm that's brewing right now.
Okay, first things first. Let's talk about the company at the heart of all this.
And what's so interesting is the problem they decided to solve. You have to picture India back in 2012. The beauty market was a total mess. If you were shopping online, you were constantly worried. Is this product even real? There was a massive trust problem. And if you went to a physical store, the selection was pretty limited. Nayar spotted this huge, gaping hole in the market for a place you could actually trust.
Seeing the gap is one thing, but building an empire to fill it, that's a whole different ballgame. So let's break down the 5 strategic moves that created Nykaa's billion-dollar competitive moat.
All right, move number 1. And this was absolutely the most critical piece of the puzzle. They had to solve the single biggest problem for Indian beauty shoppers: trust. The market was flooded with fakes, so Nykaa decided their entire foundation would be built on authenticity, period.
So how did they actually do it? Well, instead of just being another open marketplace with thousands of random sellers, they started with what's called an inventory-led model. That means they bought all the products directly from the brands themselves and stored them in their own warehouses. This gave them complete control. It allowed them to stamp a 100% authenticity guarantee on everything. This wasn't about being the cheapest, it was about being the one you could rely on. And that decision to focus on curation instead of just discounting was an absolute game changer.
Okay, so with that rock-solid foundation of trust in place, Nykaa made its second brilliant move. They understood something fundamental about beauty. You're not just selling lipstick, you're selling confidence, you're selling knowledge. So they created a content with commerce model, and they were really the first to do it at scale in India.
This quote really says it all. Instead of just selling, Nykaa believes in educating the target audience. Nayar realized that many women in India just hadn't been given the information they needed to pick the right products. So Nykaa's mission became simple: educate first, sell second.
And they went all in. They built this massive content machine. You've got Nykaa TV with video tutorials, the beauty book blog, a huge presence on Instagram and YouTube. They weren't just a store anymore. They built a whole community. They became the go-to beauty advisor for millions of women across the country.
Now, here's something a lot of people get wrong. They think of Nykaa as just a website, but that is a huge misconception. Their third strategic move was to build an omnichannel moat, and for them, physical stores weren't some afterthought. Nope, they were a core part of the plan from day one.
And the scale of this is seriously impressive. We're not talking about 1 or 2 flagship stores. As of FY25, Nykaa has 237 physical locations. Think about that. This isn't just a token effort, it's a massive nationwide retail footprint.
So why is this so powerful?
Well, it's the best of both worlds. Online gives you the convenience, the endless aisle with over 4,000 brands, but offline, that's where you get the experience. In beauty, you need to be able to touch, feel, and try products. Plus, these stores in really good locations act like giant billboards. They scream credibility in a way a website just can't.
Okay, so Nykaa has trust, a massive community, and a physical footprint. What's next? Well, move number 4 is where they really cranked up the profit machine. They decided to become a house of brands.
This 3-step playbook is just pure genius. Step 1, use their inventory model to build unbreakable trust. Step 2, once you have that loyal audience, you open up a marketplace to scale the selection. And then, the killer move. Step 3, You use all the data you've collected on what people are buying to launch your own high-margin brands.
And these are not some cheap, generic knockoffs. We're talking about legitimate, beloved brands in their own right, like Nykaa Cosmetics or K-Beauty, which was a huge collaboration with Bollywood superstar Katrina Kaif. These have become absolute cornerstones of their business.
If you want proof, just look at the numbers. Nykaa Cosmetics alone did over 350 crore rupees in gross merchandising value. That is over 40 million US dollars from just one of their in-house brands. That just shows you the insane power of this private label engine.
And that brings us to the fifth and final move. And honestly, this might be the one that sets Nykaa apart from almost every other tech startup out there. From the very beginning, they had a laser focus on being profitable.
Yeah, this quote nails it. While you had these giants like Amazon and Flipkart just burning through billions of dollars trying to buy market share in India, Nykaa refused to play that game. They were obsessed with their unit economics, making sure that every bit of growth was actually sustainable.
So we've seen the what, those 5 brilliant moves. But the really fascinating part of the story is the why. Why was a 50-year-old former banker the perfect person to pull this off? This is all about the founder's unfair advantage.
This right here is the heart of it. When you look at this, it all just clicks into place. That laser focus on profitability, that's what you get from 2 decades in investment banking, analyzing balance sheets, getting all those big brands on board from day one. Her network and her credibility opened doors that would have been slammed shut for a 22-year-old founder. Funding a massive, expensive rollout of physical stores, she was an expert in capital allocation. And navigating a huge IPO? Well, she knew the capital markets inside and out. Her experience wasn't a bug, it was her superpower.
So what can we all learn from this incredible story? And what's next for Nykaa? Because trust me, the story is far from over. Let's dig into the key lessons and the major storms gathering on the horizon. Now, if you're building a business, listen up. There are things here you should absolutely copy. Be relentless about customer trust. Build a community, not just a customer list. And be disciplined about your finances. But you can't just copy everything. You can't replicate Falguni Nayar's personal network or the exact timing of her IPO. The lesson here is to understand the core principles, but then you have to apply them to your own unique situation.
But here's the thing. When you build a kingdom, everyone else wants to take your crown. And the battlefield for the Indian beauty market is about to get incredibly intense.
And we're not talking about small-time challengers. You've got Reliance, one of India's biggest conglomerates, storming in with their own platform, Tira Beauty. They're also the ones backing Sephora's big expansion. You have e-commerce giants like Myntra making a serious play, and then there's the constant, rising tide of smaller, nimble online brands. The competition is absolutely fierce.
And just to make this feel real, take a look at this hypothetical snapshot of what the news might look like in 2026. This is the new reality. Conglomerates buying up brands, e-commerce players going into physical retail. This isn't some distant threat. This is the landscape Nykaa has to fight in right now.
And that all leads us to the final lingering question. Nykaa built its kingdom on trust, community, and by mastering both the online and offline worlds. But now, as these giants with practically bottomless pockets enter the arena, is the moat that Falguni Nayar so brilliantly built deep enough to defend the throne? That right there is the billion-dollar question that's going to define the next chapter of this incredible story.